Welcome, everyone, to Rhody Football Gameday as we welcome you into Week 3. Connor Derosia, Jonny Blair, and Noah McLane. We have a great show planned out for you guys this week. We're going to talk about the game coming up at 6 p.m. right here from Meade Stadium against Campbell. We're going to turn the page after a tough loss last week, guys, to Minnesota. We're going to talk about a couple of things in terms of how the offense has been going, what the defense has been doing, and we're also going to have game previews, predictions, and rumor has it we're going to have a little competition right here between the three of us. All of that right here on Rhody Football Gameday. Well, welcome back to Rhody Football Gameday as we're going to break down the CAA in Week 2, guys. And, on Saturday, September 7th, the full conference schedule was rolling and rocking. Two teams only remain undefeated. That is Delaware and Villanova. And then as well, two teams are winless, guys. That is Monmouth and Richmond. Now, Richmond was in that top 25 to begin, but they are no longer.
Yeah, there's a few FBS matchups with this conference. William & Mary, University of Albany, and Rhode Island Rams all lost their FBS matchup, while Maine also fell to Montana State.
Yep, and NC, A&T, Hampton, Towson, Bryant, Stony Brook, New Hampshire, Campbell, and Elon all picked up their first win of the year last week.
So a couple of very interesting storylines ahead of Week 2. Now we move to Week 3. The CAA conference play kicks off for a handful of teams this Saturday, including right here tonight. 6 o'clock against Campbell for your Rhode Island Rams right here at Meade Stadium. Monmouth travels to Maine. That'll be a very interesting game. Villanova to Towson, and as well as Delaware taking a trip to Greensboro to take on North Carolina A&T. And then Rhode Island, of course, looking to take an advantage early with a conference victory. Welcome back to Rhody Football Gameday. Connor Derosia, Jonny Blair, and Noah McLane. As guys, let's turn the page right here, literally and figuratively, to Campbell this week. As now we know that the Rams last week did not pick up a victory against Minnesota. However, there is a lot to take away from last week's game, including some of the very interesting defensive personalities in that contest. Guys, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Despite the 48-0 score, there were a lot of key defensive standout players, including guys like A.J. Pena, Carson Primrose, Cole Brockwell, and Andre DePina Gray, who all shined in the game. That despite the score, there are positives to take from it.
Yeah, and that defense is going to have to be great today, as the Camels have a serious offense with a three-headed horse. Quarterback by Chad Masco Jr., big, bulky quarterback, able to run through defenders and hard to take down. And his backfield mate, Mark Biggins, is a big power back, averaging over 5 yards a carry. And then where this offense really separates itself is at the wide receiver position with Sincere Brown, 6'5", averaging 26 yards per reception. This man, if the Rams cannot find a way to contain him through double teams, through hopefully being able to lock him down one-on-one, he is going to be a game breaker for this Rhode Island defense.
Yep, and then also Campbell is a team that can score points not just on their offense but from their defense. They have allowed 200 rushing yards per game on average in their first 2 games of the year, but they only give up 213 yards passing. That passing defense, very good for an FCS team. And then the Rams, they're going to have to get the run game going early, something they struggled with against Minnesota last week. Difficult task against Holy Cross in Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. The run game really going to have to continue to get going. As we talked about, the receiver room, the quarterback, everything for Campbell looks very solid. Rhode Island, that defense looked fantastic, but something they have to work on this week, guys, is cleaning up the penalties. There's been way too much of it. When we break down some of the numbers, over the first 2 games for Campbell, we'll start with them, 25 penalties for an average of 117 yards per game in penalties. At Rhode Island, on the flip side, 15 penalties for 122 yards lost through the first 2 weeks. And now Campbell might be among the fewer teams in this conference, but this is not a game simply to pencil in as an easy victory. These 2 teams certainly are going to have a head-to-head matchup tonight, and Rhode Island has to clean some things up. Welcome back, everyone, to Rhody Football Gameday. Connor Derosia, Jonny Blair, and Noah McLane. Well, guys, one of the most important things to watch this week in team trends and the stock watch has got to be the quarterback competition. We talk about Devin Farrell and Hunter Helms both seeing multiple drives this past week, and also in the game against Minnesota, we saw both quarterbacks in action. It remains the biggest storyline, guys, on this team because we still don't know who is going to be that quarterback for the rest of the year. And right now, that is up for grabs heading into week 3.
Yeah, and one thing to add to that, there's a famous quote, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have 1 quarterback. And one thing that is not helping the quarterback room here at Rhode Island is the run game, only averaging 2.8 yards per carry. One thing that has been a bright spot, though, is the offensive line, specifically in pass protection. Last weekend against Minnesota, it was a much bigger offensive and defensive line going up against us. They held their own. It wasn't always pretty, but they held their own. Center Trey Alexander has been amazing, replacing Sebastian Delasotis, while tackles Brock Bethea and Jacob Ott held their own against a much bigger defensive line. It's also worth noting there's still no real clear RB1 here. Okay, we've seen Malik Grant get a decent amount of touches. Gabe Sloat, Deion Silas got a few touches last week, and finally Jaden Griffin got some touches too, with I believe 6 carries. I think Rhode Island trimming that backfield down to 2 or 3 instead of spreading it out game by game, I think will go so far for this run game and allow those running backs to get in rhythm. Absolutely, and looking towards the receiver room, it's really just been a one-man show led by sophomore Marquise Buchanan, who leads the team in receptions and receiving yards with 9 catches and 152 yards through his first 2 games of the season. But now we're going to flip to the defense where, after a tough performance against Holy Cross in Week 1, linebacker Cole Brockwell, and also team captain, had a phenomenal game against Minnesota. Again, despite the score, he played very, very well. And then looking towards the secondary, it's going to be a big problem. We already talked about Sincere Brown and his talent. It's going to be up to Frederick Malay, Braden Price, and Ayinde Johnson to slow down Campbell's very tall 6'5" weapon.
Absolutely, guys. And, I think you guys just both nailed it on the head. There's a lot of things in just about every area of this lineup that needs to be figuring out who will step up. But that's one of the beautiful things. It's still only week 3. But like you guys said, it's got to happen, and it's got to happen most likely by this week, or if not this week, definitely by the end of next week. That's a look at the team trends in Stock Watch right here on Rhody Football Game Day. Ahead of the game today, we have a little bit of a competition, and we have a little bit of a, insight to just how hard it might be to kick a field goal as a college football player. Between the stadium noise, guys, between the pressure of the moment, the 3 of us, as students, as non-athletes anymore, washed up, out of the picture, put it away. The cleats have been hung up for a long time, but today we are going to try and see if we can kick some field goals. And without that, let the Rhody Football Game Day competition begin right here.
All right, welcome back to Rhody Football Game Day. I'm Jonathan Blair. On the other side of the table is Connor Derosia, and the man in the middle is none other than head coach Jim Fleming. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm great, bro. It's game day.
Game day.
Yes, sir.
I want to start you off with a serious question.
Okay.
I think that I want to know your thoughts on the camel as a mascot, and if you find that intimidating at all.
No, I don't find it intimidating, and it really has no bearing on the game, but I do appreciate you looking out on that. I've been thinking the same thing all week long. Don't think I've ever played a team that was called the Camels.
I, for one, am taking a ram in a head-to-head fight over a camel 10 times out of 10. But we got a big conference matchup today against Campbell. What message are you trying to send to Campbell through the play, the preparation, everything on the field today versus Campbell?
Well, I mean, I'm expecting us to come out of the gates really fast and be able to go ahead and attack. I think that, we're coming off a tough one versus last week. We've seen bits and pieces of what we're capable of on both offense, defense, and special teams. But I do think that this is a really worthy opponent. They're tough. It's the first CAA game. It's going to be a battle like they all are, and we've got to go out and play extremely well because they've got a lot of good, talented kids, and they're coming off a very big emotional win versus Western Carolina.
And, Coach, I agree actually 100%. This is going to be a tough game for you guys. But it's your first matchup with Campbell as their first CAA game. What do you want them to learn about your program tonight? Something for them to think about on their way back to North Carolina tonight.
Well, I mean, that's always the intent. Try to go ahead and get a W and make sure it stings on them so the next time we have to play, they understand that they're going to get a physical battle from the URI Rams. I mean, it's critically important that, we play well tonight to be able to get that victory, but certainly anytime you're home, you want to send people home very unhappy.
And, Coach, this is the second home game of the season, but you don't have another one until almost a month later, which will be the Governor's Cup. So how do you capitalize on the atmosphere here tonight and continue it into the next few weeks? And since you have such a long wait until you're back here at Meade Stadium,
I think you expect and hope that the crowd's going to be off the hook, just like they were last time we were home versus Holy Cross. You want to feed off that energy, but I mean the best way to feed off energy is when you go ahead and do something that creates it. So I mean our play on the field, we're anticipating doing, plenty of spectacular things. It might bring some oohs and ahs and then get everybody involved in the game. Hopefully it's not one of those ones that got to go right down the wire, but if it does, it does, and we'll keep people on their seats.
A win's a win's a win.
Yes, it is.
A win is all that matters. And, Coach, final question here. What's the message you want to send to Rhody Nation ahead of this game before kickoff tonight?
Come on out and let's go take a first step towards the CAA championship. We've been working a long period of time. We're honoring a team, the last one that ever did achieve that goal, 1984, 1985. A long time this place has been waiting for a championship. So to Rhody Nation, we're about to start CAA play. Get on out there and let's go get one.
All right, Coach. Thank you so much for the time. As always, we can't thank you enough. And we'll be right back with so much more right here on Rhody Football Gameday.
Welcome back to Rhody Football Gameday. Connor Derosia, Jonny Blair, and Noah McLane. Right now, guys, we have a couple of game preview and predictions. Now, last week's predictions, they were interesting. Connor, maybe you had the best of us in some sense, but right now we're going to talk about this week, and let's start with which team and who scores the first touchdown. Connor, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm going an unpopular pick here. Rhode Island faithful, but I think Cynthia Brown for the Campbells gets in the end zone early, 6'5", averaging 26 yards per reception. He's a dog. He's one of the best players in the CAA. I think he gets in the end zone at least once today, maybe twice.
Jonny, please tell me you have some better news for me over here.
I got the other wide receiver one in this matchup. This time for the Rhode Island Rams, it's going to be Marquise Buchanan. We mentioned before how he's really stepped up into that wide receiver one role. I think he really makes his mark in this game and helps Rhode Island take the lead.
Fantastic. I got Gabe Sloat punching in on the end line. We talked about that running back game needing to find some more just consistency. I think that's just something that this team is lacking right now. That's going to be a big thing. Let's talk about play of the game. Who has the play of the game today? Jonny, we'll start with you because hopefully you'll have a better answer than this guy.
When you're looking for a play of the game, you always look towards the stars, and that's what I'm doing right here. I'm going to go with outside linebacker A.J. Pena to have a big strip sack, make a big play for the Rhode Island defense late in this game, kind of turn the tides, change the momentum, and hopefully lead to a Rams victory.
Connor, how about you?
Yeah, there's going to be a theme here with my predictions today. I think Cynthia Brown, like I said, gets in the end zone multiple times, over 100 yards. This dude is a game changer. I think you're going to see him separate himself from the rest of the pack today. I don't love to say it, but this dude is a dog.
Well, there's a dog in this Rhode Island locker room. There's a lot of them, but there's one guy in particular, and I've got one name for you guys. Wesley Neal. He's going to be the guy today. He's going to have the play of the game. He's going to get up over that big line. He's going to block a kick. It is going to be electric. And Wesley Neal is the kind of guy with that kind of play will get this team fired up and lead them to victory. Now, breakout performance of the week. This could be very interesting because this is a big game for the Rams this week. Who has that breakout performance for URI?
I'm going to go Sean Harris, arguably my favorite receiver on this Rams offense. Has a lot of wiggle to him. When I watch him, he reminds me a lot of Jalen Waddle, the way he gets in between defenders. He had that big catch week 1 to secure the victory versus Holy Cross. And I want to see the Rams get him the ball in space, throw him some bubble screens, get him on some drag-ups, get the ball in his hands because he's really a special athlete with the ball in his hands.
And Jonny?
For me, we've already talked about how the run game has not really been there for Rhode Island the first 2 games. So I'm going to look at Deion Silas to make a big impact in this game and change the game for the Rams.
Fantastic. Now let's talk about a little bit of the surprise performance of the week. Connor, who do you think kind of emerges themselves this week and really makes a statement?
I don't know if it's really emerges because Cole Bracco played so great last week, but I'd like to see him put 2 games together. He struggled week 1. I think he puts together a great week 2 with that big back, Mark Biggins. You know, he's going to be a lot of tackles for him, and Chad Mascow Jr. looking to scramble. So I think he gets close to 10 tackles today, and look for him to continue to build on that Minnesota performance.
Fantastic. And Johnny?
And for me, I'm going to go on the offensive side. I think it's time for Rhode Island to have a solidified quarterback one, and I think Devin Farrell is the one that takes that job. He had a great game week 1 against Holy Cross, leading that game-winning drive, the miracle at Meade, as we call it, and I think that he's going to earn that starting job today. I think he's going to have a great game.
Guys, I'm going to go back to who I said last week, and that's Jacob Otts. Now, the reason I say that is because this guy has worked hard. He's a very large guy that loves to just move guys around on that O-line. And I think that last week when we saw him be able to do great things, Connor, it's similar to what you said. I want to see him have 2 games in a row where he makes a statement where he says, this is my school, I've waited for my time, and now I'm taking care of it. Last thing is the final score prediction. And Connor, please tell me you have something better to say this week.
I'm afraid, my friend, I do not. I'm going 34-21 Campbell. Sincere Brown, Mark Biggins, Chad Mascow Jr. are running through this Rhode Island defense today, I'm afraid. I hope I'm wrong, but we shall see, fellas.
Johnny.
I'm gonna be the nice guy here. I'm gonna pick the Rhode Island Rams to win 24-17, take home the victory at Meade, to go to 2-1 on the season. I don't know why you keep taking this Campbell team, but don't bet against this Rhode Island squad either.
Now, I'm gonna just go ahead and go out on a limb here and say that Rhode Island is going to come out. Rhody Ruckus is like no other. They were on the road last week against a very high-powered defense everywhere around the ball around Minnesota. This week they're back at home and in front of the Rhody faithful. We got some of the alumni Rhody football team coming into the house tonight. Rhode Island, statement game today, 28-14, Rhode Island at home gets it done. Well, thank you for joining us this week on Rhody Football Game Day. We look forward to seeing you all next week ahead of going to LIU in Week 4. Stay tuned as Connor Derosia, Jonny Blair, and Noah McLane will be keeping you updated right here on another episode of Rhody Football Game Day.